What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some more PGA DFS picks and lineup advice for DraftKings and FanDuel. This time for the Texas Children's Houston Open down at Memorial Park in Houston, Texas. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, joined by Niromada, our PGA DFS analyst at Occupy Fantasy Golf World Championship qualifier for me, former 100K winner in golf from Niromada. Two people you want to get your golf advice from for DraftKings and FanDuel. Niro, what's up? How are you?
I'm good. We're just a few weeks away from the Masters, so now's the time to start plugging in deep, grinding, checking out the full score distribution every day of tournaments, seeing how guys are playing. So, yeah, now's the time, and then you're gonna have a major a month for the next 4 months. So this is it. It's time to enter peak golf season.
No better time to be alive. So what we're going to do in this video, we will quickly review what we learned last week. We always think it's important. There are a couple high-level nuggets and player-specific nuggets that we can move forward with. Maybe not this week, but in future weeks. We will discuss the top plays in our Occupy model for this week. What is the data telling us who we should play at the Houston Open? What are industry projections telling us who will be the highest owned golfers and higher owned in sharper contests? Guys that you should be aware of and maybe you can play in your low dollar GPPs. And then we'll close it out with some trifecta plays, some betting market notes, and weather showdown tips because that was a big angle last week, Nero, and the angle got overplayed a bit. I've never seen betting markets react as I saw the betting markets react last week. We had 21 trifecta plays, all from the early late window, and it didn't really pan out. As we know, weather is fickle, and if you were bold enough to completely fade that angle, you actually ended up pretty profitable in the long run yesterday or last week.
Yeah, I would say so. The one sort of exception, possible caveat to that was, when you got to the end of Friday, and if you looked, the top 25 of the leaderboard was very heavily skewed towards the what we thought was going to be the wave advantage, the Thursday morning players who did actually get less wind, not as much as we thought, but they did have less wind in Thursday morning and on Friday afternoon. And my logic behind that, while acknowledging the fact that it could just absolutely be short-term noise in the data, is that on a course that's that difficult, if you were a little bit off, you were going to shoot a big number. Doesn't matter what wave you were in, high wind, low wind, doesn't matter. You were going to shoot a big one. But the only way to get close, or the best way, not the only way, but the best way to get close to the top of the leaderboard was to be on your game and be in the wave with the less wind. So, maybe something to kind of file away, keep in the back of our minds for when we hit tough golf courses, when we hit majors, when there's a perceived big wave advantage. That the wave advantage as a whole might not be what you think, but targeting the better players in that supposed wave advantage might still be to your advantage.
Right, and because those guys that were at the top of the leaderboard by Friday afternoon, they just didn't play well over the weekend. They had the edge going in,
Correct.
and they didn't, and then they just
Yep.
got outplayed by basically every afternoon golfer on the planet Saturday and
Yep.
Sunday, which is why you saw some of those guys at the top of the leaderboard, right?
Yep. 100%. And one betting strategy just for, people looking for weekend plays, round three, round four showdown plays, or even betting market plays, once the weekends transpire. When there is a wave advantage in the weather, is to look for the guys who made it through the bad side of the draw because they logically, probably played better than most of the guys in the good side of the draw. But they made it through. They were in the bad side and they were playing well. So then when the weather evens out on the weekend, which it certainly did this time, they all had very similar conditions. You'll see some of those guys come to the fore.
Absolutely. And another guy we mentioned last week was Xander. You and I discussed on this show. Have we seen enough from him to start plugging him into our lineups coming back from that injury? And whether you played him or not, that is irrelevant because Nero moving forward, we saw that low round that we were looking from Xander in the final round on Sunday.
He certainly did. Shot 66 on Sunday, and he shot 68 on Friday as well. Um, I remember when I first started doing golf content for Occupy, and you and I are having some of our early golf conversations. One of the things I was talking about was how I'd noticed that many of the sharper European handicappers were always fixated on seeing a low round from a guy. Like, just doesn't matter when they, but just show me that a guy's gone low in the last week or 2 weeks to tell me that his game is there. Golf is full of randomness, it's full of variance, it's full of all that stuff. But when you see a guy, especially a high end player like a Xander, string together a really low round, that would tell you that overall his um, total game is not too far away. The flip side of that coin could be someone like Victor Hovland, who we were all 1 week too early on, as Brian buries his head in his hands, because we were all over him at Sawgrass with the inexplicable steam that was on him. Then we had the player quote from Hovland that said he finally was believing in what he was working on again. Of course, he shoots promptly, goes out and shoots 80 or something like that on the Thursday to open Sawgrass. But the thing that I was reminded of now, again, let's be clear, this is not what I did myself this past week. I was not over the field on Hovland, and I should have. But again, I've now learned this lesson like 6 times over the last 10 plus years of playing DFS. Golf is full of variance. There's a lot of things that you cannot control in golf. So when you see the inexplicable steam on someone who is not playing well, and then you actually get like a player quote to back up why you saw the steam. Just playing that steam for 1 week isn't good enough. Like, you need to play it for multiple weeks because there's so much variance in golf that, like, a guy might be on the right trajectory, but maybe he had a really bad round with the putter, or maybe he got stuck in the bad side of the draw, or maybe he just didn't play well one of the days. But he's still in that upward trajectory where he's going to outperform his salary plus ownership combination, which is the only thing that we care about in DFS. And turns out it only took a Hovland a week to do it. But it's a good lesson for everyone to keep playing that stuff and be willing to lose money on it for a few weeks. You don't have to play it forever. Play it for a month. Doesn't materialize, fine. Back off of it and make the guy show you something. But I just thought it was a great reminder to keep that kind of stuff in our minds when we're making these selections every week.
Excellent reminder. And the formerly known Ricky Fowler theorem is now the Victor Hovland theorem. And so when you see split steam,
Absolutely, yeah. Deserves to be renamed after you actually win. Because even though Fowler did play good at the tail end of that steam stretch, he didn't ever win, and Hovland did.
yeah.
So there
So
you go.
there we go. Now, if we say the Hovland theorem, you'll know we're talking about guys who got betting market movements and they say something in their press conference that leads to them being undervalued moving forward. And finally, just really quickly, Shane Lowry was top of the model last week. Another top 10 for him. In our show notes, I wrote yawn because it's getting boring. And again, his putter did not cooperate for most of the rounds this past week. But again, just it's hard to describe how well Lowry is playing.
Yeah, if you would have, especially if you watched it with your eyes on Sunday,
Which I did.
like, yeah, it's like I was thinking, how's Lowry not winning this golf tournament right now? Like, just I thought that a couple times on the back nine. So, with an even average putting performance, I assume he would have been the champion this past weekend.
I think so too. All right, let's move on to the Houston Open. I know the viewers are out there, guys. Where are the picks? Welcome to the pick segment. Top plays in our model for the Houston Open. Number one should be no surprise. Nero. Maybe it should be a surprise based on how the other guy has been playing. We have the Scotty versus Rory debate this week. Scotty at 12-7 on DraftKings. Rory at 11-7. No other golfer priced above 10K. JJ Spawn at $9,900 is a wild thing to see, by the way. But Scheffler versus Rory. Our model still has Scheffler. It's more of a long-term form model. And the model is picked up on the putting variance in opposite directions for both. Rory's been running a little bit hotter than he should be with the putter. Scotty has not been. I think, well, again, if you've been watching these tournaments, you've probably seen that with your own eyes as well. But do we have a preference outside of what the model was telling us this week? Scheffler number one, Rory number 9 in our model.
Yeah, I mean, my early preference would be for Scotty. I mean, he's had great success here. Close to home. Looks like he and Rory, and really hard to know, but if I had to guess, I'd say they're probably going to come in roughly in the same area for ownership. He had a bunch of quotes from Scotty at the Players talking about how while his hand is 100% healed, he was just talking about how it really threw him off his practice routines, and he's still working on getting some of the full strength back in the hand. And now it finally feels like the strength is back, and he can do all of his regular practice stuff. By the way, he still finished. I don't know if he finished outside the top 15 in any of the tournaments that he started in between. But coming back to a place where he's had great success, and another week off to get that hand and those routines back to would normally be, would make my early preference for Scotty. As I also note in the plug, anytime a guy gets over 100 score in the model, my eyes get extra big.
Which he does have this week. And again, wouldn't fault anyone for taking Rory either. And Nero, this is a bit of a Masters tune-up. I guess the course is trying to replicate Augusta a little bit. So again, just a little forward thinking here as we're looking forward to the Masters here in 2 weeks. Maybe guys that play well this week could translate in a couple of weeks to that major.
Yeah, long, very long course. Like distance matters a ton here. The rough is basically non-existent. You'll have a lot of similar shade down areas around the greens to try to replicate a little bit of that Augusta feel. I mean, it's not completely that way. The course is flatter than Augusta. Augusta has a ton of elevation change, but the rest of that those higher level course characteristics they're trying to emulate. So it's with that lack of rough and the long distance of the holes, just a bomber's paradise.
So that leads into number 2 in our model this week, which if you've watched him play at all or seen his results, you're not lining up to play him this week. But Nero, like I said, this is a long-term model. Kurt Kitayama at number 2, who's coming off cut, T33, cut. However, I wouldn't say most of these venues fit his game that well. But talk to me about Kitayama. What could the model possibly be seeing here? And what kind of drugs do we have to take to insert Kitayama into our lineups this week?
Well, very good course fit based on what I just said, right? Like that stuff really fits Kitayama's game. So he's got really good long iron player. He had more long irons here than normal. Uh, Very good. Still has good ball striking stats, even though his finishes have been relatively abysmal recently. And obviously, a top 20 distance player in this field is going to give you a very good score in the model, especially for high risk contests.
Yeah, and again, shot 80 in round 1 at the Valspar, but did shoot 69 in round 2, so clearly not that far off.
Yep.
And again, made the cut at the players. So next we have Tony Finau, and then we have Michael Kim. Finau, obviously, long-term, high ceiling, high floor golfer. Kim has been on fire so far this year, made another cut, barely this past week. Nero, you can talk about Finau too, but I do want to mention a player quote Michael Kim said on Twitter he's running on fumes as he's trying to qualify for the Masters, doing everything he can. But he says back's hurting a little bit, neck hurting a little bit. Are we taking that into account? Because he still, even though he said kind of similar things last week, he still made the cut.
He did make the cut. I think this actually these two players are a good example of a player of making sure that your player selections are appropriate for the contests that you're in. I would classify Finau as a much better high risk contest play, and Michael Kim as a better low risk contest play. I think his Michael Kim's floor is higher, but Finau is a great course fit, and he's had good success here, and so I think his ceiling is higher. Again, Kim is not a great course fit, but again, his short term form is amazing, and probably top five in this field for short-term form, but not as good of a course fit as a whole compared to Finau's distance rankings and where he sits and all the ball striking and long iron stats compared to Kim.
Next, we have a group of guys that, if you've played some contests this year, you've probably played some form of these guys. Maybe not the first two, but certainly the last two. But a bit of a surprising ranking for these next 4 guys: Mac Meisner, Matty Schmid, Siwoo Kim, and Andrew Novak. Anything stand out about these 4 guys that round out the top 10 of the model for you?
Uh, Long irons really would be the one thing I think that unifies the four of these guys. Top 20s, top 30s, top 25s, top 40s, 50s, and they're all ranked in the upper section of long iron stats for this field. And again, as I mentioned, you're going to have more long irons here than you will at other places. And then with Meisner specifically, you do get some bumps on the short game, distance putting and his strokes gained around the green, chipping, that kind of thing. Again, which you're going to have a fair amount of with these green complexes. So I think your long irons is your unifying metric on all four of those players.
Interesting. So a common theme from the model this week. Now, if we look at industry projections, moving on to the next segment here, as we've said every week, and it's been spot on every single week, we look at these certain set of industry projections. These lead to these golfers being higher owned in sharper contests, high dollar GPPs on DraftKings and FanDuel. And if you're playing in those contests, be wary that these guys will be higher owned. If you're not playing these contests, you're playing 50 cent, 25 cent, $1, $2 contests where pros can't play. Give more consideration to these guys because sharper players will be on them. Nero, who on DraftKings do you expect to be higher owned based on these projections than industry and our ownership projections indicate?
Yeah, we got six total. So let's just start with just DraftKings. Scheffler, Scotty, so just throw him out. Ben Griffin, Joe Highsmith, Mackenzie Hughes, Max McGreevy, and Andrew Novak. Um, Mackenzie Hughes is also someone that you're going to find on the FanDuel list, and he is as I sometimes identify him in the plug, he's the course history truther, play of the week. I look at his, and he's a guy that you wouldn't stereotypically think would fit the course, because he's not a bomber, relies on the short game, but is a pretty decent long iron player. Again, probably because he's not a bomber and he hits more long irons than most of these guys. But his four finishes here: 14th, 16th, 29th, and 7th. So no finishes outside the top 30. And he doesn't have many courses like that where he's generally a somewhat inconsistent player. So you just don't see that from him on a regular basis. But that's our DraftKings group, and then for our FanDuel group, we have the same Mackenzie Hughes, the same Scotty Scheffler, and the same Max McGreevy. And then your two differences are Rory McIlroy, as we talk about all the time with FanDuel. Their pricing structure just makes it easier to create a stars and scrubs lineup, and it's just simpler, um, and less painful, we'll say, to create lineups with players at the top of the salary range, including lineups that have both players, like both Scotty and Rory at the top of the range there. And then last week's almost hero, Jacob Bridgman.
Who's been getting top fives like it's his job recently. Been playing really well. So shout out to Jacob Bridgman.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about when I said earlier about the top five guys in short term form, when I was throwing in Michael Kim in there, I really don't know how you could keep Bridgman out of that group. So his last, let's see, we got his last four finishes: third, fifth, 50th, 15th, and second. So three top 15s in his last four starts.
Not bad. Not bad for a pro
Yeah,
golfer.
not
So,
not bad.
yeah, Bridgman, Michael Kim, who else? Highsmith. These are the guys that have been hot to start the year. Let's see if
Yes.
they can continue that
Yep.
run. Speaking of hot runs, market moves. We have no early trifecta plays where a golfer's odds to win have improved at every sharp sportsbook that we monitor so far. But again, it's only Tuesday early afternoon. But Nero, we do have a couple guys, I would say even a handful, that have had their odds move at multiple books. Not all of them, but multiple. These are guys to keep an eye on for that coveted trifecta status by tomorrow evening. But who do you see, and is there any common thread, kind of similar to how we talked about the top grouping in the model, any common thread among these guys?
Yeah. So I think we've got three things that we've talked about so far: Commerce, long iron player, and then with Mackenzie Hughes, we talked about having someone with an elite short game who's had success here. Somewhat similar. Again, it's a light course comp with Augusta, but you see some of the same attributes at Augusta, right? You can win a green jacket without being a bomber, but you better be at the very top of the short game charts. The easiest way to win there is to be a great distance player. So if we look at the distance stuff here for those early market moves, Jesper Svensson, Taylor Pendrith, both bombers, and Michael Thorbjornsen, also a bomber.
Your boy.
I really hope that, yeah, well, I really hope that Thorbjornsen does not get the trifecta status, because there will be irresponsibly large amounts of Thorbjornsen in my player pool, and I will be mad at myself on Friday afternoon when he inevitably misses the cut. And then on the short game side of the fence, you've got Maverick McNeely and you've got Harris English. And then with the long irons strengths, you've got Adam Hadwin and Justin Lauer. So, um, And Lauer maybe stretching a little bit with that long iron stuff. Otherwise, he's not really doesn't really fit into one of the categories very well. And every week we have one or two of those players. So yeah, keep an eye out, and let's see if any of these guys end up being trifecta plays when it's all said and done tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening.
So Niromada will put the latest list Wednesday afternoon in the update in our daily plug at occupyfantasy.com, and I'll come in our Discord probably 8 or 9 p.m. Eastern with the final list. So make sure you're a subscriber at occupyfantasy.com for the latest and greatest trifecta list. Finally, Nero will close out the show with weather. We talked about the wave advantage last week, and the forecast is all over the place this week. I'm not sure if there's something we can utilize ahead of time to make our lineups. Maybe we can. Are you seeing something differently, and how do you expect it to play out?
Yeah, it's a little tough. I mean, if you didn't if you told I'll say this. If you told me there was no rain in the forecast, I would actually say I think it's going to be the same as last week. I think it's going to be an advantage to play Thursday morning and Friday afternoon. However, there's rain in the forecast both Thursday afternoon, Friday afternoon, and a little bit Friday overnight. And that rain looks actually more like thunderstorms and less like just like long continuous rain showers. So anytime there's thunderstorm risk, you're at risk of them stopping play. And once they stop play, if they do, all wave advantage stuff goes out the window. You might have created a wave advantage from nowhere. And so you're just, it gets a little extra risky when you have that setup. I would probably, so let's say the forecast doesn't change. Maybe I would have 10% of my lineups stacked Thursday morning, Friday afternoon, and 5% stacked Thursday afternoon, Friday morning. So I'd still play into the two areas that I thought there would be some less wind, but I would be acknowledging the thunderstorm risk and the fact that wave advantage could get played out of nowhere, or there could be no wave advantage, which is why I would still have the vast, vast majority of my lineups not taking that into consideration.
Let's say you're playing three.
Again,
Sorry.
yeah,
Just really quickly. Let's say you're playing three
yeah,
lineups. A
go
lot of
ahead.
our members out there play three lineups. Would you recommend one no wave advantage, one early, and one late, or is it not enough to consider it for only three lineups?
Yeah, for three, I think I would probably play two with none and one with the wave advantage, one Thursday morning, one
Okay,
Friday afternoon, and I would just be like, well, if the opposite wave advantage gets created, then fine, so be it. I'll take my chances with my two lineups that don't have any wave advantage baked into them at all.
sounds good. Was there anything else you wanted to add about that before I interrupt you?
No, no, no. I was just gonna say, same thing like that. I would still play more of the wave advantage than I wouldn't, but that the majority of my stuff would just not have the wave advantage factored into my decision making at all.
Fair enough. All right, and so for the final weather update, Nero will put that in the daily plug. Again, the daily plug is where Nero puts his top plays, lineup strategies, course fits, everything you need in a written format. Go check it out, occupyfantasy.com. That's posted Wednesday mornings. Our Occupy model is already up and running. You can get the full rankings for DraftKings and FanDuel based on our data. And the last trifecta plays, get that Wednesday evening in our Discord. And our lineup builder, which allows you to build up to 300 lineups using our model and other criteria, that's available, occupyfantasy.com. Links are in the description. We appreciate you watching until the end of the show. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We got some big videos planned soon. You don't want to miss those. Subscribing is the best way to do so. It's free here on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. That's also a free way to support the channel. Any questions, comments, drop them below the video. And we'll be talking to you before the Houston Open starts Thursday morning. So for Nero, I'm Brian. Thank you everyone for listening, and good luck and enjoy this tournament.